Hi, everybody. Joe Buzzello here for sellsource.com, sellondemand.com, Sellsource Radio, your video and radio podcast. We have a great guest on today. I'm the author of 3 great books. Go to Amazon. Cap Equation, Foolproof Formula for Unlimited Success in Sales. It was a bestseller. My second book was a novel, Drawing Circles, a great story based on actual events. In my third book, A Life in Sales. So go to Joe Buzzello on Amazon. I have an author page and it's all on there. And we hope you're part of our sellondemand.com program, sellsource.com. We cater to salespeople, entrepreneurs, leaders, solopreneurs. Let me tell you about Tom Scarda, our guest today. Tom is the founder of the Franchise Academy. He's a CFE, a Certified Franchise Expert. And he really knows his space. And it's great to talk about because some people think they want to purchase a franchise, or they're curious about it, or they're ready to dive in, but they don't have a lot of coaching and counseling. And he knows his space because he was voted the #1 franchisee of the year for his first franchise. He had a successful exit from that. And then in his second experience, it was he calls it a miserable failure, crash and burn experience. So that's where he learned all his lessons. And he wrote several books, one of which is Franchise Savvy. It was a bestseller. So over the last 15 years, he's helped over 1,500 people figure out whether franchising was right for them and what type of franchise or category was right for them. So Tom, my friend, my buddy from the East Coast, my fellow short Italian buddy, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Joe, this is great. Thank you so much. And the whole platform that you have, the SEL is awesome for entrepreneurs. So much good information. So appreciate what you're doing to help people.
Good. Well, we enjoy it. We love coming into people's offices and home offices, kind of coming into their life for this video podcast and asking a lot of great questions. I have some great questions I'm going to hit you with rapid fire about this franchising thing that you're so good at. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. First and foremost, I got thinking about what kind of traits or characteristics are critical for someone getting into a franchise, investing their nest egg in some cases, all the money they have in some cases. So who is this person that should get into a franchise? How do you identify them? How do you know who's cut out to be in a franchise?
So, yeah, great question. And there's a lot of different specific criteria, but really you have to be coachable and you really have to have a good attitude. I know your next book is going to be all about attitude in business and sales. And it really is being a glass half full person and wanting to build something, whether it's a business, a franchise or not, it's the hardest thing that you'll do. But it's also the most rewarding thing that you'll do.
So coachable, tell me about coachable. So you've got, I'm big on coachability, on being open. I have coaches, you have coaches, we are coaches. So someone who's been in business, they're a serial entrepreneur, they've been doing it themselves for many years. Are those great prospects?
So typically in franchising, we're not looking for the maverick or the renegade. We're looking for someone that wants to follow a system, someone that wants to translate what they've learned in corporate America over the past 10 years or 20 years and employ that in their own business. So it's someone that has great experience. Typically someone that's in business already would be bored in a franchise because a franchise has the system all laid out. And so you just have to follow that system. It's a business with training wheels. And if you already have run a business, you don't need the training wheels.
So a wildly creative guy like me, if you drop me into a system, I may try to tweak and change it. I might muck it up pretty good. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the last thing we want is a Joe Buzzello.
Yeah, I got you. So what about the demographics here? And I don't know if there's an age, or it probably isn't an age, but if there is an age, I think of a friend of mine who somewhere between the age of 42 and 44 bought a fantastic Sam's franchise, and he's done really, really well with it. And he was in corporate America. He was in the gaming industry in Nevada. So is there an age necessarily of someone who gets into a franchise business?
So just, statistically, usually it's not someone that's just out of college. A franchise is looking for someone that has experience from corporate America. Usually it's someone that wakes up and has what I call a midlife awakening, and they feel like, oh my God, what am I doing? I don't like my job. I don't like my boss, all that kind of stuff. And it's usually a second or a third or a fifth career for somebody. Being in a franchise is the second, third, or fifth career. The average age of somebody buying a franchise was always hovering around 42 years old. During the Great Recession, that actually expanded and became 56 years old. Because if you, in 2011, as an example, if you were 50 and got laid off, you could not get a job for the most part that was making the same money that you were used to making. So a lot of people dove into franchising and built their own little business.
Gotcha. It's interesting. I think about a few friends that I've had that have gotten into franchise businesses, and some done well, some haven't. But in most cases, they did have that awakening, that entrepreneurial seizure, that what they were doing wasn't going to supply them with a great retirement. It was going to be an average retirement at best, maybe watching, clipping coupons and watching your spending. But typically you're talking about someone who has that awakening and says, hey, I want to do just a little bit more. I want to take the ceiling off. I want to write my own paycheck and take more control over my life. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Because whether it's a job or a business or a franchise, it's just a vehicle to get you what you want in life. So if it's just simply paying the bills, there's one vehicle for that. It's mostly a job. But if you want the grander things in life, whether it's, going on great vacations or, flying on private jets, you're probably going to need a business for that. So it depends on what you want. And then you got to figure out what's going to be the best fit to get you there.
Got it. So let's talk about the costs, because I know a little bit about this. I know that, you have to strike a check. You have to pay a premium to buy someone else's system, prototype system. What is the range of cost of establishing a franchise, the low, the high? And also talk to us about the financing. What are some of the financing options for people?
Great. That's really good. So just very generally, there's 4,000 franchises that span 90 different industries under the franchise umbrella. So you could start something that's kind of a smaller franchise, almost what I would call a starter franchise. That's a service business that's operated out of a home office or an executive office kind of situation. That's like $100,000 investment. If you wanted to step up into something that's in a retail store, in a strip mall, typically you're looking at about a $200,000, $300,000 investment. And then if you want to go into a sit-down restaurant type situation, like a Taco Bell or a KFC or Panera Bread, you're looking more toward a $1 million investment. So financing-wise, typically there are companies that will finance a franchise startup. So a regular bank usually doesn't do it. So if you just walk into your local Wells Fargo or Bank of America or Chase, they're not just going to write you a check because you want to start a franchise. But there's companies that deal with franchise startups on an everyday basis. And so I help get you to those companies so you can finance your franchise. And so typically the franchise company, some of them, the bigger ones, the ones that have big brand names, they've been around for 40 years. Sometimes they do in-house financing as well.
Gotcha. So a person could risk or spend 50 to 100,000 all the way up to $1 million, depending on what their comfort level is. And they have a decision to make there, but also financing is available. If not through the franchisor, you can help someone find financing.
Absolutely. Yeah, as long as you have a 680 credit score or better, and just a little bit of collateral, we could get you a loan for a franchise that'll get you, possibly to a six-figure income if you follow the system and build it right.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned, it's kind of mind-blowing. I made note of the statistic, 4,000 franchises, 90 categories. and we always think of fast food, but there's 89 other categories, obviously. So talk to me a little bit about what someone should be thinking. So, for example, I know a common school of thought might be, well, I love golf. I've loved golf all my life, so I should get into the business of golf. I should buy a franchise in the golf industry. But is that true? Should someone necessarily chase what they're passionate about? Or should they be more dispassionate, less concerned about what they're passionate about, and more concerned about assessing the vehicle based on the merits of that business vehicle?
So it's really the latter. So, we hear the phrase all the time: if you love what you do, if you love your work, you never work a day in your life, which is absolutely true if you're working a job. But in a business, a business is not a job. You're building a lifestyle and you're building equity to take you into retirement. Hopefully, that's what you want to do. So if you love golf, it might be the right vehicle, but it might not. So what I suggest is that you really, really understand the day in the life of the franchise owner in that business. So if you end up buying like a golfsmith, you find yourself in the store folding sweaters every day. That's not golf. You're just a retailer. So I always suggest that you find a business that'll give you the time and the money so you could golf to your heart's content or do whatever it is that you love to do.
See, to me, this is critical. It's critical for someone to do the due diligence, not just stroke a check and jump into something. But I think what you provide is critical. We are coaches. We have coaches, as mentioned. But you, as the coach, mentor, and tour guide, travel guide, you could take someone through this thought process so they're really making an informed decision. And what I believe is true is that someone should, as I think about it now, be dispassionate about it, really look at the vehicle and really experience the day-to-day life of the operator of that business vehicle. And you can help them do that. You can take them behind the curtain. And I think that's critical. Let me ask you this. What is this, a cottage industry? What are some of the stats and numbers behind the number of franchisees out there in the marketplace?
People are usually surprised by the breadth and the depth of franchising. Like I said, there's 4,000 franchises, franchise concepts. There's 733,000 franchised units around the country. Many of the businesses that you probably frequent are a franchise, and you may not even realize it. Actually, 1 in every 7 businesses in America is a franchise. Franchising as an industry employs the most amount of people than any other industry in the country, except for the military. 18 million people are employed by a franchise somewhere in America. It's absolutely an immense industry, and it accounts for 1/5 of the gross domestic product output in America.
1/5. That's huge.
1/5. It's in the trillions, that output in franchising.
I have 2 more questions for you, but I want to mention, if you're watching this podcast, sellsource.com, Sellsource Radio, we're glad you're with us. You have an offer that you mentioned before we came on air. You're going to give everyone watching this an opportunity to grab a free copy of Franchise Savvy. So we'll get to that in a moment, but I have 2 more questions, and one of them has been on my mind because I hear a lot of figures. I've never owned a franchise, so I really don't know what's possible. What could someone earn? What could someone, as we say in the street, what could someone pull down from a franchise?
Yeah, forget about it. How much money you could make. But it varies franchise to franchise. And it's difficult to say how much you could really make, because the way you run a business and the way I run a business may be totally different. I may hire a lot more employees, or I may decide to take more write-offs than you because I'm more risk and I'm not afraid of the IRS, So there's different things, but you could get into a business for a low 6 figures and make that money back and make a 6-figure income from the franchise. That's possible. The thing that's really most interesting, in my opinion, about franchising is that it's the only investment that I know of where you can actually talk to the end user. You can actually, in a franchise, before you buy anything, I'm going to coach you to talk to the franchise owners all over the country and find out what their experience has been like. Are they getting all the support that they're paying for? Are they happy with what's going on? Are they making money? And then
So this is all verifiable. You can, as a coach, you could walk someone behind the curtain and they can verify everything, so they're not jumping in blindly and risking writing a check and risking their nest egg.
Right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The first business I bought, the smoothie franchise, I did it through a franchise consultant. The second one I bought, I just did it kind of sight unseen. I just thought it sounded like a good idea. And I was cocky because I just had success in the first one. And that one ended up failing terribly, miserably. And that's what made me a franchise expert. But it's interesting. So my whole story is in Franchise Savvy, my book. So if you want a free copy of Franchise Savvy, feel free to just email me at tom@thefranchiseacademy.com. Again, that's tom@thefranchiseacademy.com. Let me know you want a free book. Give me your street address because you're going to get a real book, not a download.
Ah, I like that. I like real books. You know, me and my wife have Kindles, but I still like being able to pick up a book and take out a highlighter and underline and highlight, because that's how I read. I'm old school. So they're going to send them a real book and they're going to get it in the mail. It's going to be Christmas when Franchise Savvy shows up. So the email once again,
tom@thefranchiseacademy.com.
Got it. And so one last question. Been on my mind, the trends right now. Things change from time to time. What's hot right now? What's trending right now in the franchise space?
So trending is dangerous, in my opinion. If you're going to make an investment, remember, this is a business investment. You know, trends have a beginning and an end. Typically a trend, when it begins, you don't know it. Maybe you're lucky enough to be in it, or you're watching it from the outside. If you jump in, you might have some success, but then there's an end and you don't know when that end is. So if you're not out soon enough, you end up losing everything that you made.
I wonder what examples, what are you thinking of, an example of something that has peaked and then cratered? Are there franchise examples of stuff that was hot one time that it got cold?
Yeah, frozen yogurt is kind of the go-to example.
Okay.
There's some other, sandwich shops that kind of started big and then went away. The franchise that I had, the whole entire industry, I had something called Super Suppers, which was called a make and take. You make recipes, you make dishes at our location, you take them home and freeze them. On days when you're busy, you throw them in the oven and you have a home-cooked meal. They sold thousands of these things, and probably within 4 years, the whole entire industry is gone, let alone the company. But all the copycats, everyone they're gone.
And is that why it failed for you? Did it fail because there was a onslaught of competitors? Was it a race to the bottom in profit margins, or what happened there?
No, there's never one reason for failure in business. So the thing for me is that it was in Super Suppers, we were trying to change people's habits in eating. So instead of ordering in, pizza or Chinese food again, because you're busy, you have this home cooked meal, which sounded great, but convenience trumps a good idea. Convenience trumps logic every time. And so what I mean by that is it's logical that you come to our location and you actually save money and ultimately time down the road by making meals in bulk ahead of time. Makes sense. But at the end of the day, it's just so much easier to stop in Ralph's and buy some whatever for dinner. So that's the problem, is that we got people to come in once because it was a novelty, but to get them to come and do it as a regular thing was really, really tough. So that was one of the problems that we had. Plus, the franchise company was not really a franchise company. They were a culinary school. So their recipes were awesome, but they weren't a franchise. They were based in Texas. We were in New York. The support was lacking. They told us that it would be about $100,000 to open up the unit. It cost us $170,000, so we were $70,000 over budget when we started.
Oh, ouch.
So there's all those kind of. And this is what happens when you buy something.
I'm listening to this crash and burn failure, and if you would have had a mentor by your side, if you would have not been so cocky coming off your first success, and by the way, I've been there, we've all been there, but if you would have had a mentor or coach by your side saying, slow down, cowboy, let's look at the support, let's look at what they have done. Do they have other franchise prototype models where you could talk to the franchisee, the operator, ask some key questions, go behind the curtain? You might have not made that investment. You might have said, whoa, this is not the right next move for me, correct?
Right. And the other thing is that my wife and I became infatuated with the concept. So as you know, when you become infatuated with something, you don't think correctly.
Yeah, you fell in love. You fell in love with the idea, and that created a bias. You weren't able to analyze and research and tear apart the vehicle on its own weight and merits. You just fell in love with it.
That's exactly right. And case in point, I remember clearly in my mind's eye being on the phone with the franchise, and they told us the cost of goods is 45%. Now, if you're in business, you know that the cost of goods needs to be 25% or less. I knew that. He said 45, and I still was okay with that because I was in love. It was stupid.
Hey, it's interesting as I coach solopreneurs, on brick and mortar entrepreneurs. I always challenge them not to fall in love with things, to really surround themselves with people that could challenge their assumptions. And so that's what we need to do. We need to surround ourselves with very strong people, our life's board of directors, our coaches, mentors, strong peers. There's a lot of different types of mentorship out there, but this has been fantastic. So if you want a free copy of Franchise Savvy, you go to Tom at thefranchiseacademy.com, Tom at thefranchiseacademy.com, and he will send you an actual physical book, Franchise Savvy, which is fantastic. That's a great gift for our audience. So thank you very much, Tommy. That is fantastic. So this has been fun. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying only for you, Joe.
I love it. So is there a question about franchising that I didn't ask you? Is there something you just want to throw out maybe as a way of caution to someone who's getting ready to jump in, or at least thinking about securing a franchise operation?
Yeah, one thing I'll say is that franchising, there's no rules or regulations that say who could franchise. Anybody could call themselves a franchise. They just need to submit the paperwork to the Federal Trade Commission, and they're a franchise. They don't need to make money. They don't need to have great support. So when you start talking to a franchise company, it may sound like a great idea from the outside, but when you look behind the curtain and really see what the support is like or how much is lacking, that's where you see the trouble. The devil is always in the details, right, Joe?
Absolutely. Well, Tom, thanks so much for being a part of the CellSource Radio video podcast, cellsource.com. If you're watching this any place other than selsource.com, go over there. We've got a lot of free resources on the site. And Tom, wishing you continued success. We'll do this again. By the way, I have on my little list of questions for you, I have another 4 or 5 that I didn't even get around to asking. So we'll definitely do this again.
Sounds great, Joe. It was an honor. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And so for cellsource.com, joebuzzello.com, CellSource On Demand, CellSource Radio, thank you. Have a great day. We will see you next time. We'll have another great entrepreneur and coach and mentor just like Tommy Scarda on. So stay tuned. We'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.